is Nina Berger. I am the Senior Career Service Manager for PreSales Academy. We are here connecting with our past graduates as well as volunteers and talking about the PreSales Academy experience. I am so excited to have Amanda Dye with me today. She is from our Cohort 6, so a while back, but her pre-sales journey has definitely been an interesting one. I am so happy to have her here, and I'm going to have her introduce herself, and we're going to dive into our conversation. Welcome, Amanda. Could you introduce yourself to the group?
Yes, it's nice to see you again, Nina. And for the benefit of your audience here, I'm Amanda, and I sort of made my transition into pre-sales from the manufacturing industry. I was basically working on operations with an Indian apparel factory that was fair trade, had this really great social kind of social impact, and then I worked on kind of operations with India and also sold B2B to brands, retailers, and distributors in the US. So that kind of gave me a taste for more or less consultative selling. And that's kind of what brought me toward pre-sales.
Nice. No, I love seeing how different everyone's background is coming into the space. Like, especially when you have a little bit of that sales experience, it kind of like paints a picture of like, oh, I could do this in the more tech space. I could serve a different type of customer. So I love that. Then kind of building off that question, what really inspired you to pursue a career in pre-sales? And how'd you find out about Pre-Sales Academy?
Yeah, well, so it's exactly as you say, thinking about moving, how did I end up in tech is sort of like step one. And I really was interested in taking that consultative selling in a different direction. I was like running a small business and working with other businesses. And so I kind of wanted to stop selling stuff and start selling tools that business leaders could use. And so that's kind of what brought me toward tech. And I was just kind of doing an open water search, trying to familiarize myself with different roles I might pursue. And I was informational interviewing my friends. And one of them happened to be a solutions engineer. And when I heard about his role versus some of the other roles I'd heard about, everything just clicked into place. It's like creative, technical, business acumen. So it really just kind of checked all my boxes for the things that, my mind enjoys working on.
Anyways, no, I think it's always so helpful to have someone been in the role too, because you're like, okay, this is a legit thing that actually exists in the tech space.
Yes, and huge shout out. I mean, he did mention the pre-sales collective and
Oh,
pre-sales academy
nice.
because honestly, it really kind of it creates a sort of roadmap for people
Mhm.
make the career accessible, right? To make tech accessible to newcomers. So that was a really helpful kind of on-ramp.
No, I love that. No, I feel like a lot of people, when they think about the tech sales space, they're like, oh, you are just doing cold calling all the time, or you have to be that account executive and closing the deal. And no, I like it how you phrase it. Like it makes it more accessible and realistic and showcases that, hey, if I want to be more consultative in the sales process, there's a route for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. Very well said. Then let's talk a little bit about your pre-sales academy journey. So I'm curious, what kind of skills and knowledge from this experience did you find most valuable in your current role?
Honestly, the value selling, I mean, I maybe I've drank the Kool-Aid here, but like it never goes out of style. The value selling is always really important. And at this point, I've worked in HR tech.
Mhm.
I'm in my second role as an SE now, within like e-commerce solutions. And honestly, the same kind of principles apply of making a value-based point, providing evidence, showing and telling, and then like reiterating that value-based point. It's so important. It's also helped me a lot in my current onboarding because I am about like pulling up on 3 months into a new job.
Mhm.
And basically during onboarding, what I've been doing, I was sort of noting down talk tracks that I could
Mhm.
use that have that kind of value selling aspect. And so when it came time to build my demo environments, my demo deck, I really had that leg up.
Nice. No, I love that idea of like, hey, I have a little bit more confidence going into this. Now I know this is your second role in pre-sales. It's nice to see just like, hey, I could repeat this process now, even with a new company and a new product.
Mhm.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Nice. And like going back and looking, reflecting on your career transition, I know that there has been some highs and lows. Like, what challenges did you really face when making the shift into the field, and how'd you really focus on overcoming them?
It was a really tough market when I came out of, I mean, Cohort 6 graduated into like the holiday season
Yeah.
2023. It was a really tough job market. There were hiring freezes at Salesforce, SAP, like a lot of the big players were not hiring whatsoever, at
Mhm.
least externally.
Yeah.
So I graduated into a pretty tough job market. It took me a little longer than I'd hoped. But honestly, the sort of recipe, I got a lot of support from PSA post graduation
Mhm.
that made all the difference, right? So first of all, I like as you well know, I attended office hours religiously, job pursuit office hours, just to keep myself accountable. That was really helpful, and I also really leaned on my career advisor. Shout out to Maddie Stremick, who went through, I mean, every demo interview I had. I went through 4 demo interviews to land my first job, and it was good. It was good. I had options, some of those were overlapping. It was a very busy time, but basically I would go through, I did dry runs of my demos with her, often multiple dry runs before those interviews. So I got a lot of support post graduation. That made all the difference.
No, I love how like throughout your search process, like you're just very consistent over time. Like, yes, when you graduate into a slower market, it's like, okay, what do I do right now? There's not as many things for me to play with. How do I still make sure I'm like focusing and moving forward? And I feel like it made such a world of difference, especially when things were opening up. And then you were like playing around with like multiple opportunities, and you're like, okay, now things are moving. Like I've already done the work of like becoming very prepared and on top of it and having that consistency. So when, it's time, go time, I was ready to dive in.
Yeah. I will also say the Hunter, PSA kind of curates a list of potential candidates in
Oh yeah.
Hunter. And that's how my first employer found me. That's how Sova Assessment found me, actually. It's a startup. It was small enough that I didn't come across it on LinkedIn. The listing was also for a solutions architect, and I was
Mm.
primarily, my search terms were mostly, SE and SC. So that's actually how my first employer found me, was looking through that database.
Nice. No, I think I love like it's honestly it's great when we get to share like candidates with employers and they get to kind of see the new talent coming from Pre-Sales Academy. Um, Especially when it's like a newer company and they're like, hey, we can't just have like all our candidates come directly to us, especially if when they have a weird position title. Like, let's face it, this profession has so many different titles. It's like, okay, what really constitute that entry level pre-sales role? Is it sales engineer or solutions consultant, or some companies will just throw in the architect title just to have some fun with it. But it's nice to know that like, hey, we can provide an opportunity to provide that connection between great graduates and some really cool opportunities out there.
Absolutely.
Nice, nice. Awesome. So going back to kind of like where you are right now, I know you mentioned kind of the value selling and that has really helped you with ramping up in your role. What other ways has kind of like your time at Pre-Sales Academy really helped you excel in your role? This could be like where you are now or your past role. What's really kind of helped you thrive in these spaces?
Yeah, so I guess it's a little bit of a different answer for the 2 roles that I've held. So I'll take those kind of one at a time. So my first role that I sort of alluded to already is a solutions architect it was for an HR tech, not a startup per se, it was a scale up, but really like really new operation in the US. Um, and then primarily located, like it was a UK based company.
Mhm.
So it was a founding solutions architect role. There was nobody else in the company doing it. Therefore, there wasn't anybody I could shadow to like learn the job per se, right? Or I really had to walk in with everything I learned from Pre-Sales Academy and immediately put it to use. I mean, I was modifying the deck that we use for mock demos during PSA. I modified it, branded it, put it in my new, work, kind of followed that recipe. Um, Yeah, and I was able to hit the ground running. I mean, I was demoing in week 3, which was a
That's
very
crazy.
unique, unique situation. A lot of the content also about collaborating with, like how I got through that experience was largely due to a great relationship with my sales counterparts who had been around the company a bit longer. So a lot of the emphasis on collaborating with your AE was
Mhm.
very helpful um, in those early days. So that was sort of job number 1. And then
Mhm.
how PSAs helped me. Job number 2, there is a built out SE team at my company, Power Reviews, which is a One World Sync company. We basically power consumer ratings and reviews on product detail pages. If you do any e-commerce shopping, or you get, follow-up emails after you purchase something, that's something that we do. And at Power Reviews, there's a proper SE team that's already built out. My onboarding's been a lot longer and more structured. And so I've basically been in this position of having to put my student cap and all the sort of practice at learning new stuff, and just being that kind of lifelong learner
Mhm.
attitude that was really, really emphasized at PSA has applied here for sure. It's also a much more technical role than my last one, just by nature of the way our integrations work versus how
Gotcha.
the integrations worked in HR tech. And so that tech fundamentals, I've like really had to take that and run with it. Got a good high level at PSA, and then I've since been like spending a lot of time with JavaScript, basically JavaScript and APIs.
Nice. No, I love hearing that. Like, hey, at the end of the day, everyone coming from this program is going to end up at different companies, and each company is going to have a different structure, onboarding, what methodology. And I love how you're able to kind of like have these like two storylines of like, hey, I still was able to take what I learned and bring it into these different scenarios and have that great pathway forward.
Totally, very different verticals and stakeholders within the tech industry,
Mhm.
very different company structures, and it's absolutely accelerated me in both. I will also say, and this is for all the PSA grads, it is astonishing how like people love screen annotations. It is the simplest thing. PSA called this out. And when I did that in demo interviews, people sometimes regarded it as if it were magic. And I'm like, it's the most simple as this most simple application I have on my computer. It goes such a long way toward creating an engaging and visually compelling presentation. So lean on those.
I love that. That is such a good tip. I hope everyone watching tapes that, sticks it in their back pocket because I agree. It's just, it helps keep people engaged and like know what to look at actually on the screen when you're looking at like a product that's a lot at once.
Exactly. Because sometimes products have a UI that's a lot more complex
Yeah.
than others. And it really does take that, you
Yeah.
know.
Especially when you're the
Oh,
first time
yeah.
looking at it, you're like, this is, how do I process this?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It sort of calls people, wakes
Yeah,
people.
definitely. Very well said. Then, Amanda, you've accomplished so much. You've gone through so many different points of your journey. What are you particularly proud of since graduating from Pre-Sales Academy?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is completing my onboarding at my current company, which is because it is such a more technical
I
role.
love that.
When I started off my journey toward pre-sales, I was like, hey, I'm a skilled end user of several pieces of business software, right? Like just using it as an end user, but I didn't have any kind of development background, no coding skills going into PSA. I did a little bit of that, as a recommended way of working on my technical chops. But at this point, a lot of the stakeholders I work with in the sales cycle are developers are actually going to be implementing our JavaScript on their
Mm.
website, right? So it's just so much more technical, and I'm keeping up. And that's a big. I mean, hopping industries. That was always the part that was going to be the hardest,
Mhm.
and I'm keeping up. So that's, I think, what I'm the most proud of is actually having a working knowledge of JavaScript
I love
that I didn't
that.
have 3 months ago.
No, I love it. And I think that really just plays into like your curiosity. Like I feel like people in the pre-sales role have to be curious because you have to constantly be learning new things.
Yeah.
And if you kind of didn't have that side of yourself, like you might just not have found like such success in this pathway. And I'm so glad that is kind of like this point that's really been like exciting and you're so proud of because yeah, you can learn hard things.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, you can. And I'm getting in front of clients. I have client presentations tomorrow and the day after. So coming to the end,
Exciting.
yeah, my managers have determined that I am fit for company, fit for client company. So it's good.
I love it. I can't wait to hear how those go. Well, I have one more question for you to Amanda. I know you've already been dropping some tips and tricks in here, but do you have any advice for anyone transitioning their career into pre-sales?
I would say, and this is again, you hear this a lot during PSA, but it really rings true that that focusing on your transferable skills
Mm,
will get you far. Um, a lot of the work of being a client facing person is writing a great follow-up email. I didn't do that. Like, I didn't learn that in PSA. I learned that in a previous job. You know, a lot of the work of providing good service during the sales cycle is just like a service orientation. How can I
mm,
help? Problem solving for people a lot that exists in a lot of different industries. In addition to, I mean, I have some supply chain understanding, finance understanding from my previous role that I haven't really been able to use, but could someday.
sure.
There's a lot that transfers over. Um, yeah, that's what I would say.
No, I think that's an amazing piece of advice because, hey, we work with so many different career changers. It doesn't do you a service if you are discounting your years of other experience. You should be leveraging that, showing how that years of experience can be highly transferable to a company and its product and can be an asset. It's not like you are a complete entry level new person to this profession. No, you have such valuable experiences that you bring to the table that can help you stand out. And just going through Pre-Sales Academy just allows you to bridge that gap and showcase how they connect at the end of the day.
Exactly. Exactly. And shout out to, I mean, I'm in an onboarding class with two people who are coming over from customer success.
Ooh.
And they are superstars because they already know the product inside and out, and they already know about building a relationship with customers over time, helping them continually improve their use of our software. So if you're coming over from customer service, you've got an express an express lane into pre-sale. There's just a lot of really valuable experience. So yeah, a lot of jobs worth doing outside of tech and
Mhm.
outside of pre-sales that absolutely apply.
No, definitely. There is such a great space to leverage the transferable experience in multiple different sectors. So I love that closing note, Amanda. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today. It has been a pleasure having you share your story and journey with whoever's watching this. Um, we are here celebrating PSA's third birthday. So I'm just so happy that you've been part of this experience and part of this community. So thank you for being here and thank you for taking the time.
Happy birthday, PSA, and thank you, Nina.
Perfect. Awesome. Goodbye, everyone.